Okay, Eric. Well, lovely to see you again.
Good to see you again. Thank you very much. Good to see you again.
A year? Well, to be pedantic, a year and a few days. You've now been in charge. Has that raced by?
Well, I'm definitely not the one in charge, but one of the team of in charge. Has it raced by? Absolutely. It's been an amazing year.
Did you get, or have you had, any surprises along the way? Anything you didn't expect?
Football is generally filled with surprises, so of course everything's been a surprise. At the same time, I think we meticulously plan, so there's been a kind of push and pull of both. So, not one instance that I could really point to.
If you actually looked now at the situation, are you where you would have expected to have been a year on?
I think we're pushing everything as much as we can on all fronts. I don't think we really had expectations of how quick things would come together. I know everybody is working really hard to make everything happen, from the players, the lads on the pitch, to the front office team, to people redeveloping Fratton Park. We have adopted a motto Mark Catlin talks about as well, as football never sleeps. So as hard as everybody works, I think we're kind of right where we need to be.
Do you find now that football, or Portsmouth Football Club, engrosses every living day?
Football never sleeps, so absolutely. And it's engrossing in a great way. You live, breathe, and eat it, and you have to love doing this or else it would eat you away.
Now, you've got a saying, brick by brick. That was always the policy from day one, wasn't it?
Well, we have not strayed from what we talked about at Guildhall. We're not going to. We're going to maintain that. Brick by brick was kind of a Pink Floyd kind of analogy. I've used trust the process before, which is kind of an American sport philosophy. Coalescing, which I think is very funny, is kind of coming together of everybody. They all mean the same thing, but basically step by step, wins the race. And so, yeah.
I mean, the other way was, of course, some people see it as it must happen, that you've got to throw big money at players and get to where you want to be the next season, but that's not the philosophy, is it?
Well, it's always been about long-term stability. So if we are lucky enough to go up this year, knock wood, touch wood as you say here, we need to be ready for that. So we need to have the players that will be ready for that, and brick by brick.
Absolutely. Now, talking about brick by brick, Fratton Park. Now, you always knew Fratton Park was going to be a conundrum, whatever you wanted to do with it. Has it become a bigger one, a bigger problem?
It's definitely not a problem, because the atmosphere is like none other. Complicated, I think, is a proper word. We're starting to get our head around it. So slowly but surely, I think there was a lot of big improvements made this year. And, gradually, technically it might be brick by brick even. We will get there. But I think we're keeping all options open just in case. But this is a beautiful home. So
you're no nearer to making anybody announcement or anybody clearer where your future would lie?
No.
No, okay. So Fratton Park, as you say, it's got this mystique about it, and it's got the history about it. That's part of what you fell in love with, wasn't it?
I think I've seen Ronaldinho talk about it, Jose Mourinho talk about it. It's a fantastic atmosphere. You can't beat this. We kind of compare it to Fenway Park, which is where the Boston Red Sox play, Wrigley Field, where the Chicago Cubs play. It's an atmosphere that you can't beat.
When the stadium is finally completed, who knows how long that will take, where will your priorities shift then?
I think at that point, you're still running everything, everything still needs to be maintained. You have the pitch, obviously, the actual pitch always need to be maintained. The lads on the pitch, the team, the first team, the development squad. I could just in my head think of the different amount of things that need to be done. But we have a 50-year plan. So once Fratton Park's done, that will be a huge milestone, but we continue to move on.
Now, history has repeated itself in a way, because when you took, or your family took over, we won the opening game against Rochdale, and we did so a year on.
Well, hopefully we can make that a yearly tradition. But our win-loss record has been very good since we've been over. I have experienced a loss here. We were just talking about that with Andy Redmond and Mark. But our win-loss percentage is very good.
Do you actually get nervous? Because that was a bit of a nervy occasion on Saturday. Do you find yourself hiding for a little bit? Or?
Hiding, no, but nervy, of course. It's exciting. You know, as I've always said, I'm a real sports guy. So when you're watching a team that you're a part of, it's a next level of excitement. And when I mean a part of, you know, just as much as every supporter who's grown up with the team. So I kind of feel now we're getting close to on par with people whose grandfathers came here, whose fathers came here, and all this stuff. So it's a nervy excitement, let's say. But last game, second half, 20 minutes to play, was utterly nervy.
Yeah. Could you see any other outcome?
Well, I'm generally optimistic, so I didn't want to look into another outcome. So the ball bounced our way. I think Jordan Spieth is a professional golfer, and I thought he did a very interesting interview one time where they were asking him about a great bounce that he got on the course, and he's very level-headed and he's very good. And he said, you know, you always talk about the good bounces. What you don't kind of count for is all the bad bounces. And I know over a round of golf, it's going to go both ways. Yeah. So if you're going to talk about the good bounces, you have to talk about the bad bounces at the same time.
You love meeting with supporters, and you went in the Victory on Saturday. You interact quite closely with the disabled supporters, so you're regularly meeting the people and the punters.
Again, to go back to the Guildhall, the fans are the heartbeat of the club, and so how can you not give the respect to them that they deserve? It's not something that we're doing for show. It's something that I care about very deeply, and I think we all care about from the Tornante side. Again, it's to see the generation, what's different here than America is that we have many teams in one city, many different sports, and this is one club for one city. And it's multi-generational. So, absolutely. I mean, it's a fantastic. We're only in 1 year fallen more in love with it, let's say, and the fans.
Now, because you're now a family that own a football club, in the summer, did you take that bit much more interest in the World Cup?
Again, I've always been a sports guy, so the one thing I could say to my wife is I'm actually working now when I'm watching the World Cup, because one day hopefully we will be at the level we're playing with players like that. It was an amazing World Cup. I've always watched the World Cup, but now I call it work.
Were you heartened by the England performances?
Well, as somebody I read on Twitter said, the happiest moment was when we scored the goal in the 10th minute in the semi-final game. They played amazing. I think they brought a real sense back to English football. I think most importantly, it felt like a team that was together in the locker room. And I think the national team feels like they're really on the up and up.
Are you beginning to appreciate now, or perhaps you always did, that a football club is a bit like a clock? It has different mechanisms making it work.
We did appreciate it before, but I think not underestimating it is the right word, but now when you're really getting an inside look at it all, it's truly amazing how much goes on. I did work with a sports team in America, so I worked with a professional hockey team for a while that also owned a baseball team. So I was able to see all the inner workings, from the concessions to the Maria's match day reports to security to what she does, ticketing, season ticketing, sponsorships, which Anna does. I knew about it, but now I'm more engrossed in it, let's say.
What are your movements from here? You're obviously going to be at Blackpool on Saturday, but your movements from Thursday onwards?
We're going to go to London and meet with architects for the stadium to talk about that. So we'll do that, and then I will go up to Blackpool, and then I have to fly home.
So people should appreciate the stadium's never far away, and it's never stopping. Just because you don't read news about it, it's still being worked on.
It is football never sleeps. I keep going back to that. We are absolutely working around the clock on the stadium. I actually feel that the response from the fans, that they really saw a difference in Fratton Park this year, and not just because of the Jumbotron, just little things like painting, cleaning it up, signage. A lot of people said Fratton Park hasn't looked so good in a long time.
Yeah, because people used to love, years ago, the old Fratton end clock, which was just a basic clock stuck on the top of the Fratton end. But the big screen is really something else.
And this is an important point, I think, is that the Jumbotron, big screen, however you call it here, we use the word Jumbotron, I'm not sure if that translates here. It has so much capabilities and memory in it and a brain behind it. Our attitude was to really soften our use of it in so that we don't overload the fans with it. I think generally over time, when we really learn how to program it properly and replays and kind of creative clips and player introductions, and it's going to become something that people are going to grow to love. From the response I've seen so far, I think people already love it. I think what we always do is we want to be extra sensitive to the fans. So we'd rather kind of eke our way into it as opposed to just splash it upon everybody. But I mean, it seems to me that it can only be an incredible improvement moving forward.
Absolutely, it does add a touch of class to it, really.
We want to bring class to this club. Not that it didn't have it, but you can only increase, and yeah, it's a great addition, I think.
You say football never sleeps. Do you ever sleep?
Yes, I do, actually, because I need to. Everybody does. But when we come over here, we work hard. So we want to meet with every group, and no group is too small and no group is too big. So whether it's the first team or the disabled group or the safety, the stadium, and then what happens here, which is kind of the kicker, once we're done with the day, LA starts to wake up. So then I have a flood of emails coming in, and I find that the only way it stops is simply you got to turn off your phone. And once you turn off your phone, you can finally go to bed.
It's actually great to hear it because you're very down-to-earth people, aren't you?
Everybody is a person. So I know people have come through this club as owners and have not been that way. I actually credit my parents to that, because growing up in Los Angeles and kind of the Hollywood, I've seen it not be that way, and absentee parents. And at the end of the day, it's always about parenting. So if you parent your child well, you have a much more chance that they'll be down to earth. I actually pride myself on being down to earth and being able to relate to anybody.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, absolutely.
Are you mindful? You've mentioned the past. Are you always mindful of the past and how it did go wrong here, so tragically wrong?
Of course we're mindful. We weren't here, so we can read it on people's faces and hear it, but it's hard for us to know how bad it was. But our mindset has never been to make up for past times. It's always been to take what we have and move it forward. So even if you had a good owner in the past, we would probably been the same. I think what people are so appreciative is because they were so burned in the past that it's such a culture change that, you know, we come from the Disney school, and we sent kind of some of the executives to the Disney school to learn the Disney way, and it's just the way we are.
Yeah, because you get you know the feeling that people felt like mistreated dogs. So whoever took over, there was this element of suspicion, but you've won over that.
Well, that means a lot to me, because that really, really means a lot. I'm not going to change, as I've always said. I think there was an element of suspicion, which I can absolutely understand because of the past. You know, you can also I tell my daughter this all the time, actions speak louder than words. So that actually does mean a lot. And we will hopefully continue to, even when we don't get the 3 points, it will be the same, and we continue this path of steady growth. And I go back to the Guild Hall. Whatever was said at the Guild Hall, and it's online now, and I've gone back and watched it, if you go back and watch it, that's exactly what we're doing now. So we're in the second year of this 50-year strategy, or whatever the length is, of keep moving forward step by step, brick by brick type thing.
Appropriate way to end, and thank you very much again, Eric.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Right.